Today, I'm going to be bringing a guest on board to speak to us about our health as women. We know from what I said in the last video that our health is very important, and women are just we're a case study at different stages of our lives. There's something going on in our bodies, and we need to understand these things. It's like a book waiting to be studied. In fact, like I said, I think we should get a certificate just for studying our own bodies. But hey, I'm going to be bringing on a guest shortly who's going to be talking to us about the female body and how to understand it, health concerns that may come up. She's a medical doctor. But before I introduce her, have you subscribed to my channel? If you haven't done so, please take a moment to subscribe, hit that bell button, subscribe, and help my channel grow. And also so you don't miss any of my videos. So I'm going to be bringing in our guest. Let me just do that. Hi.
Hello.
So, our guest on today's episode is Dr. Ejiro Kraga Ogomigo. She's a medical doctor. She'll do more of the introduction of herself and her expertise. You know, doctors have so. In fact, I don't even know what to say about doctors, but she's an occupational health physician. She has run her own diagnostic center and been in occupational health for at least 10 years. So I'm going to throw things over to her to introduce herself and then we'll get into the conversation. So, Dr. Adro, please tell us about yourself.
Okay, I think the first line of introduction is, do the viewers see any resemblance between us? And if
I
they
want you to
do,
leave them guessing.
they'll be correct because I'm actually her youngest sister. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. My
well,
baby. I carried her. I
well,
actually carried her.
now you're spoiling my street cred. My street cred. Anyway, I'm a medical doctor with my experience mainly being in occupational medicine. Um, I do have a degree, a diploma in occupational medicine, and that's my area of interest. The good thing about occupational medicine is a lot of it is also preventative medicine because it's basically a situation of the effect of work on your health and then the effect of your health on work. That's exactly a short description of occupational medicine. So preventative medicine is an area of interest for me because I think, as the popular saying goes, prevention is better than cure. So if you can prevent sicknesses, obviously you live a more bounteous life, a more fruitful life, and a more enjoyable life, all in all, which is what we're all looking forward uh, to having at the end of the day, so that when your race is run, you can say you had a good run. It's not just about living long, it's about living well while living long. So that's the whole point of preventative medicine. I'm hoping that today I'll be able to educate you on the uniqueness of the female and how to make sure that women stay in good health and live fruitful lives, all in all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, in case you did get that, she's my baby sister. I just have to say it again so you can know. All right. So, um, the first thing I'm going to be talking about is the fact that I think I said in my last video that I feel women should get a certificate just for studying their own bodies, because it's like at every stage of our lives something is happening within your body, and everything comes with its own unique circumstances and they just need to be studied. I mean, a young girl, moment here, mommy's baby, and then the next moment you notice there's this. I mean, you're flowing more every month, and things are happening, and just there's always just something happening. Then maybe as you start to settle into that, and you enter your 20s, and you're like, okay, now I've formed a routine. Then you get married, and then all sorts of everything just goes haywire. And then you move into your that throughout your childbearing years, you experience all sorts. And then just as you're starting to say, yes, I can finally rest, then your body starts recovering from childbirth. You start losing all the hair that came up, and then all sorts of things happen. And then you start entering perimenopause, where you get into the risk of getting pregnant again. And then you enter menopause, and there's just always something. So, can you just educate us a bit about that from a medical viewpoint?
Okay. One of the things I try to do when I talk is I try to avoid sounding very officious. Just because, I mean, medicine is has its own language, and when you start going into all of that, you make the concept seem as though they're above the grasp of regular people. So I'll try as much as possible to break it down into a sort of conversation where we can understand, because anyway, it's our bodies and it's what we've lived in all our lives. So the more I break it down, the better we are able to manage our bodies, I believe. So the the female anatomy is very, very unique, and for lack of a better expression, funny. Funny in that, unlike men, we're sort of born equipped with all we'll ever need. You know, for men, of course, as we know, little boys, they get born. Then after a while, you have your puberty. Then those fresh hormones start coming in. Then all those many things that can happen as men go older, and it's sort of smooth sailing, aside from obviously societal pressures. This is not me downplaying the man's experience at all. But for women, when you're born with your complete set of eggs that you're going to ever have. What now happens at puberty is that they get released, they get mature, and they get released. So no new eggs get formed along the way, or at least that's what science has told us for now. Now, when women are born, you sort of go through the motions. You're 0 to 5 years, you're flowing, you're going good. From about 7, 8, puberty starts. You start having the first signs of puberty. Some people even get their periods that early. We're having a lot of cases of young girls starting their periods that early. Of course, we thank the technology for a lot of that as well, because of blue lights and all those, the environmental factors that cause the eggs to mature faster, and then of course puberty comes faster, and then of course exposure to all manner of media content that can also stimulate the brain to produce these hormones. Anyway, to keep it as concise as possible, the female then starts her puberty. She starts to notice hairs coming out under her armpits, by her pubic region. Fat starts getting stored in the breast area, so the breasts start to grow, the hips start to change. The boys are noticing these things. You yourself, you're noticing these things. You go to the changing room at about 10 years of age. Some of your friends already have full breasts. You are there, maybe flat chested. So, they start having all of these changes that start coming. On the average, let's say about 13, the period comes, right? And this is also another stage. The period comes, and as I have a daughter who is a preteen, and one of the things I tell her when she gets into the mood swings is I tell her, relax, you're having big girl emotions in a little girl's body. So, they start getting introduced to all of these hormones, and now they cannot understand, why am I getting upset unnecessarily? Why am I crying more than I used to? Why am I getting edgy? Why are things irritating me a lot more? And then all of these little changes that don't seem very big, but they accumulate. And unfortunately for us parents, sometimes you get to scolding, why are you crying at your big age, and they can't really manage these emotions at that time. But these are the things that come with puberty.
Even
And
we
then,
can't sometimes,
yes,
really.
that's what I wanted to say. Even at our big ages, we cannot manage these things. How much more expecting a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old to manage such
Mhm.
emotions, you know?
Yeah.
But they start to have all of these things. And, it's funny because they notice this is not the same in the boys. They actually do notice because
Mm.
the boys sort of, it's a gradient for them. I'm not a boy. I've never been a boy. So I mean I have to clarify that because in these days you don't know if that was my origin. But anyway, I've always been a girl. So, you know, the boys kind of have it on that upward slope. That's how it goes for them, because things are kind of steadier. But for us, it's so many hormones coming here and there, the ones that are releasing the egg. At what time of the month is it? At what time of the year is it? Is it cold? Is it hot? What have you been eating? What have you not been eating? There are all these factors that then form, and then there are societal pressures. They start noticing, the boys like me. Am I pretty enough? Am I, at all of those ages, and because society places so much pressure on our outward appearance for women, girls are not really expected to be intelligent. Girls are not really expected to be physically capable. As much as we feel like we've evolved past all of that, we really haven't, because you're expected to wear your hair in a certain way. You're expected to groom yourself in a certain way. You're expected to sit in a certain way. Even now, we still have those pressures.
Yeah.
So, you see a girl that is so sporty and has how well defined muscles. You're like, why is she looking like that? But what's wrong with the girl being capable? What's wrong with the girl doing multi sports? That's her interest. That's her interest. But they start facing all of these many things. And in between, they question themselves. And actually, there have been reports of girls downplaying their ability because they're getting into puberty. So you see, that time is a very crucial time for us as women.
Yeah.
It almost cements our ideas of who we are and how we view ourselves. You know. Anyway, they proceed past this point, and then they get to about 18. Now, 18 is another phase entirely. While, yes, now they've settled, as Mrs. Afe said to us, that they've settled into being, having the periods and whatnot. But they're not at 18, they're not adults, but they're not babies either. So
Yeah.
they're sort of caught in between, you know. And in actual fact, at about 18 is when your body, even physiologically, is ready to bear kids, you see. So
Yeah.
you even face cellular changes on a cellular level. That's on a very little level. You face changes that prepare your body for
Having
childbearing.
kids. Yeah.
But guess what? On the other hand, so let's say you divide your body into your lower region, which is where your uterus is, and then your brain. So while your lower region is saying, yay, I'm ready to have babies, your upper region is not ready, because that part of your brain, your frontal lobe, which is the front part of the brain, which is responsible for making executive decisions, that's big grown up decisions, is not even fully formed. And doesn't
Really?
probably get fully formed till about 25. So this is another
Five.
qualifier. Again, you're not an adult, you're not a baby. Your body is telling you to do things in a certain way or ways that are meant for adults who can make sensible decisions, but your brain is not ready for it.
Yeah.
So you find that again, we now start dealing with heartbreaks. And this is now the first sign of what I like to call big girl wahala. So
Mm.
you start with heartbreaks, which are another thing entirely, because we need to remember that as human beings, we're divided into body, mind, and spirit. And
Yeah.
all three of them work
Have
together to
to.
form who we are.
Yeah.
So while we might say, okay, heartbreaks are not really physical and like that, you will be surprised to know that because they affect the mind, your
Yeah. They
brain
actually.
produces hormones
that affect
that
the
actually
body.
affects your body.
Yeah.
So it is such a whole unit. And I'm very grateful for the fact that mental health and mental wellness have started coming to the
Taking the
forefront.
front
And
stage.
yes,
Yeah.
and people have started realizing the importance of having your mind right. So
Yeah.
again, they proceed through all of this, and let's say, okay, we have some that get married in between that 18 and 25. Well, but most don't. So let's say about 27, which is about the average age where people get married in our own society, our society being Nigeria and Africa. Anyway, when they do get married, it's another set of issues
Oh
because
yeah.
now let's take an example of someone like me. I'm the youngest in my family, right? And I have older sisters who have always taken care of everything, last born privileges, and they've always done everything. Now, suddenly, I'm taking from where my mom used to cater to me, my sisters used to cater to me, to a situation whereby I'm now the one running a whole house. And
Yeah.
without me, the entire house doesn't function. That's another stress on its own. But again, during that phase is where I'm probably building my career, which is
Yeah.
another problem. So
Mm.
now I'm being thrust into two new phases. I'm building
Yeah.
my career on the one hand, and I'm building my family on the other hand. This is
Yeah.
another thing entirely. Then there's now the societal pressure. Oh, now you're a married woman. There's a way you need to carry yourself. But you've only just come from a point where you were young and free. And suddenly, you need to be so responsible. You can't be seen having dinner with your friends outside because what? You're supposed to have been at home. You understand? But those pressures are
Yeah.
not placed on men. So again, you are now thrust into that. You now have to run a societal front while dealing with the back end issues, which are your work and your family. Your body is responding to all of this because your mind takes on a certain level of stress and your
Mm.
body is having to respond to all of this.
Yeah.
Then you move from that, okay, a couple of years into your marriage, you have a kid. It's two-pronged here. You either have a kid or you don't have a kid. Either way, you are stressed. So if you have a child, it's a new kind of stress. If you don't
Yeah.
have a child, you're wondering, why don't I have a child? That's another stress. So
Mm.
women are thrown into this new phase again. And maybe for
Yeah.
the next 10 years, you're either looking for a child or you've just had a child. One
Mm.
of
Yeah.
them. Each child is unique.
Yeah.
So you're having to cater to every child at their level. You cannot
I
raise
still
child
cater to the dad.
and cater to their dad. I was coming to that. So you cannot raise child A with the way you're raising child B. You
Yeah.
have to raise them independent of, yes, there are general rules within the house. The whole family has values, right? And a set of values and ethos. But that's not the same as individually having to cater. So there's the one child that will not get ready early in the morning. There's the other child
Yeah.
that will get up too early in the morning. There's the other child who likes to eat pepper. I'll give you a little story. I'm about to make dinner, to start preparing towards for dinner for my kids. I have three daughters, and two of them like plantain. One of them does not even want to see it. But I have plantains that are ripe now. If I make plantains, what does the other one eat? So now it means I have to make two different sets of dinner for them.
Mm.
You see what I mean? And
Yeah.
this is another stress on its own. Because while I'm at work, see, I'm having this seminar now, but guess what? I'm thinking of dinner while at it. That is its own stress, you see. So you're now done with all of that. Then the husband man comes in and is like, yeah, I need you for personal issues. I need you for advice issues. I need you for even mommy issues. So you find that again, you have to cater to him. But don't forget, at this time, your parents are getting older. So you
Yeah.
still have your parents to cater to if they are alive. You have your parents to cater to. And again, the same pressures are not placed because everybody understands if a man says he cannot visit or he cannot call his parents. Nobody understands if a woman can't, you see. So you
In
have to
fact, some
cater.
people want daughters for that reason. It's like when I'm old, my
Exactly.
daughter will take care
Exactly.
of me.
Somebody will take care of me. So again,
Yeah,
you're catering to your parents, you're catering to your children, you're catering to your husband, you're catering to your work, you're catering to yourself.
yeah.
But the trick here is in that period, most women tend to skip themselves. So we'll come back to that. I'm going through the phases now. Okay, now you found a routine. Kids are now in boarding house. Daddy has understood that well, mommy is not always available. So husband now understands, when you guys have you fought the battles and now you found a routine within your marriage. So okay, husband settled, children are in boarding house, so at least you have peace for 2 months every quarter. So again, okay, good. Your parents, okay, now you're catering to them. Okay, now work, work, work. Just as you're getting to that, you're sitting down, you're thinking, am I the only person feeling hot here? Everybody's like, no, now the AC is on. You're like, which one is this again? Then, just this month, your period was supposed to come on the 12th. Today is the 15th, your period has not come. Let it not go and be that all my private issues are about to show up in public. Quick, quick. Hope I'm not pregnant. You run to the chemist there. You take the test. You buy 4 tests. You you pee in the night. It's okay, maybe because it was in the night. Then you pee in the morning. Then you pee in the afternoon. You check, so many tests because you're worried. But then you start having what I like to call private summers. Only you are the one feeling summer in your body. You're the only one feeling hot. AC is on. What's going on? You're irritable. You are this. You're that. You're standing up. You're sitting down. You're just not
And
yourself.
you're eating way too much
And you
and
are eating
craving
way
sugar.
too much. But guess what? Again, you have these nice clothes that you've accumulated over the years. So now they're getting tight and you have to fit into them. So you're like, what is
Mm.
this? Then you start battling. That's another phase. Menopause is kicking in. So you have your perimenopausal phase. And then, just as you say, okay, you know what? I am going to deal with all of this. I have readied my mind that this is what I'm going to do. Menopause itself now comes in. Ha. Now your hair is thin. Now your metabolism is extremely slow, but you're still eating. Now you're experiencing dryness, you know, and itchiness and all these other funny symptoms. Then usually it's about this stage that the accumulation of all the lack of care tends to show up. So
Mm.
you start having sicknesses. All manner of sicknesses now start. But even without, let us assume that you went through unscathed. Guess what? Your grandkids come and you try to run after them, and then you find out you cannot because your knees are paining you, or you're trying to jump down the stairs, and then you realize you can't go as fast as you used to. Or like my mom was saying, you want to get up from a chair and you have to get up in 3 phases. You get up in the then you move forward, and then you stand up. So you realize that you cannot get up the way you used to. You see, so all of these phases are the life cycle, so to speak, of the average female. But it doesn't have to be so. It does not have to be so. There are some
Mm.
things that are sacrosanct and you cannot change. There are those. But for the majority of it, your destiny as to how your health goes is in your hands. And it starts from the choices you make earlier on. And that's why I'm here today. What are the sort of choices that we can make that will give us a better quality of life? And when we now get to that stage, we can actually run after our grandkids. Again, we are lucky. We are in a phase where women can now be seen in gyms. You know, older women are on Instagram flaunting their capabilities in their 70s, you see. So we're gradually getting there. You have people like my mom who is in her 70s who goes to the gym every day. So we are beginning to get aware. And like I say, better late than never. So we're beginning to get aware. We're
Mm.
beginning to understand the importance of actually looking after ourselves. I was once speaking to somebody who said, well, But women in the olden days, they didn't used to go to the gym and they were all fit. I said, but guess what? They were walking to the farms. They were
Yeah, so that's
lifting
the question I was just going to bring up, that,
exactly.
comparing the olden times to this computer age, those women were
Yes,
actually active all
exactly.
through,
They were
because they were
active.
going to
So
the
they
farm. Even
were
on the farms, they
they
are
were
doing
hoeing,
some
they were tilling, they
or
were
picking
lifting.
stuff from trees, and
Because it's not
all
what we
the,
go to do in the gym. We go to go and
yeah,
pull down weights. We go to go and lift weights. But they were lifting baskets of cassava. So they
yeah.
were walking miles from the stream multiple times a day because they'll walk from
Mm.
the stream, do that,
So
then
they
they'll
were
walk
getting
back.
their 10,000 steps in.
More than 10,000 steps, probably, if they had Apple wristwatches. We will all know how many steps, but they were getting their exercise.
Mm.
So when they sat down and they consumed a bowl of eba, it was justified. You
Yeah.
see, it was justified. But now you wake up in the morning. Let's even start from childhood. You get up, for most people, you're so privileged. You jump into a car, you get dropped off at school. In school, you're by your desk. Okay, you come out for break time, 30 minutes, and then you run back inside. And then in a society like ours, a chubby little girl is seen as cute, and then until she becomes a teenager. So, oh, she's told how cute she is because she's chubby. So everybody plasters their kids with food. And then you get to teenagehood, the same thing. How much walking are you doing? Then you even get older and it's worse. Oga, madam, you jump in, you get into, you don't even drive yourself. At least if you're driving yourself, you are moving your hands. This, or you don't even drive yourself, you sit at the back of the car, you get dropped off, you take an Uber everywhere, you go from house to car to house. And while in the house on a soft sofa in front of the TV. So at the end of the day, we're all even struggling to get 5,000 steps. Let's not even look
2,000.
for
Some days I don't do 2,000 if I'm not intentional about it. That's the truth.
exactly. So that
Yeah.
is the word I wanted to bring up when we're talking about preventative medicine. You have to be intentional. You have to want it and you have to take the steps to getting it. We must remember that as women and as humans generally, little drops of water make a mighty ocean. You
Yeah.
know, nobody just does zap and, an ocean shows up. Let's leave that for God. For we human beings, you have to take it a step at a time.
That's a, it's a process.
If you're going to get to the top of the ladder, you have to go wrong by wrong, one
Yeah.
foot in front of the other. So every little decision we make counts. And it's better if we make those decisions earlier than later. And earlier being, we can help our kids. We can actually help our kids get to that level of understanding, so that by the time they are older, they will not have the same struggles. Because that's the whole point of community, that we should
Mm.
learn from, the next. If you're into horse riding, you see, our people had a lot of wisdom when they used to say, it's the horse in Yoruba, they would say, Eshinwaju niteyinwo sare, which
Yeah.
means it's the horse in front, the one at the back, mimics.
Watches.
And
Yeah.
yes, and
Mix.
if you are actually into horse riding, it's not just something they said, it's true. So if I were riding a horse and suddenly the horse in front of me picks up, my horse is likely to pick up if I don't grip it. So that's the whole value of community. We have to look at examples in front of us, learn, see where they went wrong, make corrections, and take on board the things that they did right. Because they
Yeah.
didn't always get it right, obviously, but we have to look at those things. Now, let's start from childhood. What are the things we can do? In childhood, and this goes for all genders, not necessarily women, all genders, the studies have shown now that the reason why a lot of adults, so you find that there are some adults at a certain weight they get wide, right? But there's
Okay.
some like me who don't spread out when we get bigger. We might thicken up, but we don't get wide. There's a reason for it. In
Okay.
childhood, when you're still growing, your cells multiply. In medical terms, proliferate. They multiply. So your cells are increasing because, of course, you're growing, aren't you? So you need your cells to sort of multiply. But in that phase, if a child is obese, and that's why the American Medical Society have talked about, that's not the name of the society, but I'm just saying the American
Yeah,
Medical
the mental body, whatever they're
Society
called. Yeah.
have found out that childhood people that had childhood obesity are at a risk of having, adult obesity, because now they have many more cells, and those cells are able to fill up, you see.
Mm,
So the likelihood of obesity comes up. But why am I intent on talking about weight, especially? Because however you use your machine is going to be the state of the machine. If you maintain the machine, then it's in good shape. If you
mm,
don't maintain the machine, then it's in bad shape. You see.
yeah.
And the machine is this outward body, is our body, the outward vessel, and then the inner things. So the inner things include our mind,
Yeah.
include our mind, our mind, our organs, our perception of reality. I
Yeah.
always say to people that reality is a myth. You see, it's how your
It's
view,
about how you see it. It's
it's
your
about how you see it.
perspective that really
It's
defines
your
it.
perspective that
Yeah.
defines what reality is.
Yeah.
So if your inner mind is not right, you will not have a right view of life. And that's true.
Yeah.
Now, why is it that women are found to have a lot more autoimmune diseases? We'll come to that where we get to that stage of development. So, for children and for little girls, it is essential that they feed their bodies right. They learn how to care for their bodies. It's not all about, oh, learn to cut your nails. Those are good. I'm not saying that they're not. Please don't get me wrong. Cut your nails, yes, you want to prevent germs, sit properly, because the way you sit, your posture, all of that matters.
Yeah.
It exudes a sort of it creates an image for you. So all those things are good. But the inner person, they have to learn to eat and feed their bodies right from a young age. Now, one of the things I used to do when I was in clinical medicine was, if I had a patient, except there was an absolute need, I will not restrict you from certain foods, even if you were diabetic. I would not say to you, except, like I said, there were exceptions. There were times where you simply have to tell the person, you can't do this. But I found that for compliance sake, for my patients to actually onboard what I was telling them, you couldn't tell them in absolutes to restrain from eating certain things. I cannot say to you as a diabetic patient, don't eat rice again, don't eat eba again. Yes, they will comply week 1, week 2, after by week 3, that's it. That's it. They just will not continue with. How can you tell somebody not to eat rice for the rest of their lives? Something that they've eaten all their lives.
Yeah.
So what I used to do is, okay, let us
Yeah.
look at a way. Let us look at a way we can walk around this, such that both of us will find a compromise. So what will I say? Okay, let's do it like this. Shebi, you eat rice every day. Oh yeah, let's reduce it to just Sunday afternoons. So you see, the patient now starts looking forward to Sunday afternoons because they know that that's the day they will eat that rice that they like. Now, when you're eating the rice, let us do it like this. Let us have a cup of rice, half a cup of dodo, and then let us have one tilapia fish. Patient is excited because the food looks exciting. Now, I am not a dietitian, and typically dietitians would sort that out, in more detail. But this is
Yeah.
my advice on a general basis that I give my patients. Or I'll say, okay, you like your eforiro, Abi? No problem. Instead of us putting so much oil inside it, let's do half a spoon of oil and then put a tomato blend. So you still get your red color, which makes you feel like you're still eating your eforiro, but in a healthier format, you see.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing we need to apply with kids. You cannot say to kids, don't eat chocolate again. How about now? Even if you don't buy it in your house, they will go to a birthday party. They will give them a party pack. Sweet will come there. What you will just create is a thief of a child or a secretive child. One of the two. Because the child will gently eat the sweet when you are not looking. I will tell you,
Yeah.
mommy, I did not eat it. You see. So instead of doing that, teach the child the importance of why you're saying this. Educate them at their level. Children are not as stupid as we think they are. We
Yeah.
need to give them a lot more credit.
Mm-hmm.
So tell them, you see what? This sweet, if you eat it every day, your teeth will fall into your hands. Your teeth will get rotten and black. Even show them images, show them pictures on your phone of somebody with tooth decay and say, okay, you know what? Let's do it like this. Let's make sure that Thursdays or Saturday afternoons, when we're having family day, where we watch TV together, then we can have two sweets. Simple.
And
The
some
child does not have any need to have a sweet during the week because they know that on Saturday they will get their sweet. So there's no need to falter somewhere in between, you see. And just these little things. Then even we have to learn the importance or the method of good nutrition. I'm not saying go and everybody should go and get a nutrition degree, but we need to understand how to, you know, adjust foods because a lot of the portions that we give our kids are way too much. They need carbohydrates to the size of their fist, for instance. So why are you pumping them with 2 spoons of rice? You must finish your food. And the child is telling you, but I'm full. You see? So, again, you're teaching them not to listen to their bodies and know how to stop. So a lot of us now we have to finish the food on our plates because we can still hear our parents' voices ringing in our heads. You must finish your food. So all of these things we need to learn them. Anyway, they move from that stage. Then they become they get into puberty. Now, at this stage, women must also understand what goes on in their bodies. At that point in time, you're losing blood, right? However little. But then it's a deficit. Whether it's a deficit of one cover or it's a deficit of a whole gallon, it's a deficit. And if your body did not need it, it will not be there. So it's a deficit. What do you want to do? Give them iron rich foods that would replace what is lost, you see. That would do so you teach them again about those periods, hygiene, to avoid certain practices, even like leaving a tampon in your body that can lead to what's it called, toxic
toxic,
shock syndrome,
toxic.
or
Yeah.
even wearing a pad for too long that can lead to yeast infections and
This
other things happening around that whole region. So again, we educate, we learn. Then we must teach our kids to de-stress. This, as in they should know how to power down.
the
I give
right
an
way.
example of what, yes, the right way. I give an example of what I'm trying, of the effects of not knowing how to power down. Sometimes I'm sitting down in my house. I genuinely have nothing to do, right? I don't have any pending work. I'm not supposed to be anywhere, but I can't rest because I'm thinking there's something I'm supposed to be doing.
There has
There's
to be something I'm
there has
supposed to do.
I can't just be free. There
Yeah, I
has to be something I'm
understand.
supposed to be doing. And that is a problem because guess what? Your mind cannot, your brain, not your mind, your brain cannot differentiate between that source of stress and actual stress because
Yeah,
all of it shows up as stress in your body.
yeah.
So, anyway, we need to teach them how to power down. Teach them that it is okay to just be sitting down without a phone,
Help
without
them
a
to be bored. They
yes,
have
help
to
them to be
learn
bored.
to.
Not every
Yeah,
time in the car, shove a phone in their hands or shove a tablet. No, let them look outside. Let them see other things in nature. But more importantly, don't forget that your children will mirror you. So now we're getting to you as a woman because it is what they see that they will learn. Now, as women, I said something earlier, autoimmune diseases are very common in women. Your body keeps records. We're now beginning to find out that emotional stress and other stresses women go through actually cause you to have diseases, and mainly
Mm.
autoimmune diseases. Your body is fighting against itself. If we look at the word disease, is a
This.
dis-ease. Your body is not at ease, is in dis-ease. So
Mm.
when your body is constantly in dis-ease, you will have diseases. So your mind, when it is stressed, your mind, when it is sad, will trigger your brain to release hormones. Let us not even go that far. Let's talk about regular stress. Why are most
Yeah.
women carrying fat tummies around? Apart from genetic predisposition, which causes you to store fats in different places, again, cortisol, which is one of the hormones released when you're highly stressed, allows for you to store fat around your organs. So, most women are stressed and these things are accumulating. You lose yourself, your mind is not right, your mental health suffers, it will show up in your body because some way, somehow, you will stop caring for yourself the way you should. I remember once I was teaching my kids something, and one of my daughters said, I was teaching them about, loving others as much as they love themselves, to learn to love others like you love yourself and la di da. And one of my daughters said, well, how can I love other people if I don't love myself first? And that is what we need to remember as women. How can you genuinely give of yourself if you yourself are not whole? So we must remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you keep trying to pour from an empty cup, you are owing somewhere else. And typically, the place you are owing is in your own body. So while you might live long, what is the quality of your life?
Yeah.
And that's what I started with. What is the quality of your life? Are you pain free? Are you able to function wholly as a human being in your mind, in your body, and in your spirit? So these are things that we need to consider as women. So while you are ready to take care of everybody, and as soon as your child says up, you say how high, your husband says come, you say how far should I come? All of these things. Remember that you have just your own body. You have just your own body, and you must respect it and treat it as such. When I tend to go overboard, I always remember something about myself. I'll say, your body is a temple. How do you treat a church? Do you just go into a church and throw trash around? You don't do that. Do you go to a church and start talking loudly and rudely in church? You don't do that. So don't talk like that to yourself. Don't say negative because your body cannot, again, tell whether you're joking or you're not.
Yeah. Exactly.
Your body cannot tell that.
It's the
So don't
power of
say
words.
things. Yes, don't say negative things about yourself. Oh, look at me, I'm just so fat like a hippopotamus. You will start to feel like a hippopotamus. And unfortunately, you don't live in water. So you are not in your
Yeah.
tummy. So again, we need to start from our minds as women. And those years between 18 and menopause are extremely important. Extremely important because those are our most active years. Not that they have to be, but they are our most active years. So it is important that we cater to all aspects of our lives that are dragging us. So remember, I mentioned your children are dragging you, your husband is dragging you, your social life is dragging you, your work life is
Yeah.
dragging you. You too, learn to preserve yourself in your work life, preserve yourself in your social life, preserve yourself in your relationship with your children, preserve yourself in your relationship with your husband. So every aspect of your life that is dragging you also needs you to preserve yourself. Otherwise, you cannot function at your optimum in those areas.
I
So
like to
be
say something like, sorry, excuse me. I like to say something like, choose your battles. Choose how
exactly
you want.
choose
You can't
your
fight everything. You just
no,
choose.
and you're not
You
in
can't
control of
do
everything.
everything.
You're not.
Exactly. We can't
You're not.
control everything because that's one thing I know that women deal with a lot. We think that we can control everything, but
Yep.
we can't
Are we
really.
human?
So
You really can.
recognize your limits and allow the rest go when you need to. That's very
So
important.
how can you do that? How can you recognize your limits if you don't know yourself? Which means you must sit with yourself. You must have quiet time. For a woman, quiet time is extremely important. Men get it. Oh, daddy has just come back from work. Guys, keep quiet. You cannot be shouting. Daddy is stressed. How about you? Who has given you time to catch yourself or to catch your breath? So for me, I've what I've done is I've taught my kids about this. Remember, I said I have three daughters, so they're going to be women. And I've taught them about this. So sometimes when I'm sitting down, they come to me and they say to me, Mommy, are you overstimulated? I say, yes. Okay, we'll give you some space. And they keep their voices down. They need to understand that mommy herself has to be fine to be able to cater to us.
Yeah.
And you can teach them. Kids are not stupid. You can teach
Mm,
them. Tell them,
mm.
please, at this time, I feel like I've had too much stimulation. I feel like I've had too much right now. Can mommy have some quiet time? They will respect it. Set a time in your house. Like for me, I'm a sort of person who likes my meditation and all that kind of stuff. I wake up early in the morning, 30 minutes before everybody else, and I just sit down in my kitchen doing nothing, thinking of nothing, and I play music in that time. I'm not saying that's what everybody has to do. Our situations are unique, but find that time. And please don't mistake that time as your quiet time with for your spirituality. Oh. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying time because when when you have quiet time for spirituality, you're probably praying. And when you are praying, you're probably praying about things that are going wrong. So again, that's another amount of stress. So that's not the quiet time I'm talking about. Oh. Mm-mm. This one is just for you to sit with yourself. Perhaps it might be time to reflect on how blessed you are. But I find that when I'm thinking about how blessed I am, it means I'm thinking about all what could have gone wrong as well. So I'm not
So it
exactly
becomes reverse stress.
exactly. So I'm not exactly in a place of rest at
Wow.
that time. But
Okay.
you have to have time for yourself. Have time for yourself. Two, have hobbies. And that's catering to the social side of you. Have hobbies. I always say two types of hobbies: the one you do with people, and then the one you can do by yourself. Because it's not every time you want to mix with people. So for me, I bird watch, for instance. Bird watching is a noiseless hobby. You cannot make noise, otherwise the bird will fly away. So it is my time with myself. I will sit down with my camera, I'll do that. Or biking. I bike by myself. I will not carry you on my bike. So even if we're all going as a group, I am still with myself. You see, then they're the ones that you have to do with people. For instance, golf. I'm not saying that you should pick up
Oh,
the same
sorry. Just to
habit.
just to chip in case you
Yeah.
didn't understand what she just said. She rides a power bike. So that's what she means by biking, not bicycle. Oh. She means a power bike.
Well, I do cycle too. So there's
I
that.
know, but I know you are referring to the
To
power
the
bike
bike, yes,
more.
the power bike. So yes. So again, pick up hobbies too. The one you do with people and then the one you do without people. It could be reading. It could be knitting. I usually prefer that whatever hobby I'm doing, I pick up as a distressor. That's the one I do with myself. Is always something I can do mindlessly, like knitting. You can just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. You see that. Please do not think that watching TV is a way to distress. It is not. It is not. There's so many things that are in the makeup of our screens these days that even bare looking at the screen is you taking in. If you look at my glasses, you see some reflections. That's me trying to block out some of those things. So not everything is TV is not a distressor. Don't make that mistake. Social media is not a distressor because half the time you're comparing yourself to the next person, whether you know it or not. You are most likely comparing yourself, either having a superiority complex or an inferiority one, whichever one. but you are comparing yourself at some point, or you are overthinking somebody else's situation that has nothing to do with you. So those are not the distressors I'm talking about. I'm talking about times where your minds are actually calm. And if we cast our minds back to the olden days, we had those social gatherings. Every house had a compound where people sit down. I remember growing up, even though we had a nice house and ladida, we will still come out to the compound with my grandma and we'll listen to stories. We'll sit in the compound with her. There was TV there for us to watch. We had computer games if we wanted to, but you would sit down outside with my grandma and we'll clean the
It used to
lanterns.
be tough also. TV
Yes,
was time. In that
yeah,
time,
TV
TV
was
wasn't like it is today.
Yeah,
Maybe
TV was, and
I'm not sure
even
if people
even
get
though TV
that.
started at it
In
started at 4,
95,
4 p.m. I think.
yeah.
4 p.m. It started at 4 p.m.
And
And
children's
even though
programs only used to run for 2 hours.
I remember that, and even though it started at 4 p.m., that didn't mean that by 4 p.m. you could now watch till infinity. No,
No, no,
you still had
no.
it was still timed. So we should find ways to distress ourselves and calm down and just live, just exist. That's extremely important for us as women. Have that because you're forever on the go. And there is no machine that you will constantly run that will not break down. So if you don't know how to take scheduled maintenance breaks, you'll be forced to take breaks. Your body will break down. And when that happens, you will come to realize how little you are, even though you are important. But you will come to realize that the world will go on with or without you.
All right.
And then,
Let me
of
just
course,
keep. Okay,
yes,
sorry. Complete your thoughts, and
yeah,
then
and
I'll
then to
just share.
round off, whatever decisions we make in this period of our lives is what is going to dictate our future. So, the exercise you did, and the back strengthening exercises you did, and the knee strengthening exercises you did, and getting your mind right, and having a right image of yourself, and accepting who you are and the phase of life that you are in.
Mm.
Look, as you get older, you're going to have wrinkles. As you get older, you are going to have gray hair. Lucky enough, mine is not showing on the camera. But you're going to have all of these things. Embrace it. Embrace it. It's beautiful. Don't stress about it. Don't stress about it. Embrace it. They are inevitable things. So if you like, inject yourself in the cheek, in the eye, in the nose, in the if that's your forte, again, I'm not blaming you or I'm not trying to run you down or whatever. No, some people like that. And if that gives you peace, please go about it. If body modifications give you peace, all well and good. But for the most part, and I'm talking in general, embrace it. Embrace it.
Because
Accept.
those things have side effects, don't they?
Yeah, but for the most part, yes. So embrace whatever phase you're in. Accept. Come to a point of acceptance and a form of settling in. Every phase you find yourself, settle in. Because there's nothing you can do about it anyway. So you might as well. And don't forget, whatever decisions we've made in terms of looking after our minds, our bodies, our spirits are the things. And when I say spirits, I'm talking about your spirituality. Whatever it is
Yeah.
that you're doing, embrace it because you need that hope. You need that hope. You need that assurance that as little as you are, there's something bigger than you that is there to back you up. You see, so your spiritual life, your mental life, and your body and your physical life all have to be catered to. Whatever decisions you've made in that time frame are the things that are going to determine how old we get. So, to add to the last part, again, if you've built the right habits in terms of feeding, in terms of uh, actively engaging your mind, you will find out that when you get older, you can delay some of the processes that are common. um, memory loss. I'm not talking about actual diseases like Alzheimer's, even though it's been found that some of these practices can help with those. Some things you just have a genetic predisposition for. But I'm talking in a more general sense now, not specifics.
Yeah.
You find out that sound physical health, because you're in good physical shape, you can go out and socialize more. When you can socialize more, your mind is kept active. When your mind is kept active, you are less likely to have memory loss.
Yeah.
So you see how all these little drops of water end up making a mighty ocean
Mighty
towards
ocean.
our wellness as we get older. So I hope that all these points have been able to equip us, not just about ourselves, but about the kids we have, and even our grandkids, for if we have people of that age group listening to us. And we've been able to equip ourselves on how to live through every life cycle of the woman or of womanhood, effectively, and enjoy every step as we can with wellness of mind, body, and spirit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the point you made about your body will be forced to stop. I have an experience of that, and it was a very eye opening thing for me because and it happened in 2014 to me, and I know you remember. Before then, I've never really had cause to. I've never visited the hospital. The only times I visited the hospital were childbirth and coming out, and I always had my kids naturally, and I was out in natural times, and so never had any issues really. And I woke up one morning, I was getting the kids ready for school, and then I just felt a pain, a sharp pain, and I thought, "Ugh, I'll deal with that later. Let me finish getting the kids ready." And then I was sitting down with them at the dining table, and I felt the sharp pain. I actually winced, and then my kids were like, "What's wrong, mommy?" And I said, "Oh, it's just some tummy pain. But let me dash to the room and get ready so I can take you to school." It was the first day of term of the new school session, and I thought I wasn't sure if the bus was going to come for them or not because it was right after that Ebola season.
Yeah.
And by the time I walked from the dining room to the door of the bedroom, which was literally 10 or 15 steps, I was doubled over in pain. I could not stand. I was crying. I was throwing up. It was just sudden. Anyway, long story short, by that night, it that episode came, and then after like 30 minutes it stopped. Then I went about my day, and then it came back again, and then it went, and by night it came back again, and then it wouldn't let up, and I found myself in the hospital, and I had to have emergency surgery overnight. By like 3 a.m., I was wheeled into the theater, and I had emergency surgery to remove when I say massive, because when I saw it, I was like, what? It was like 11 centimeters by 8 centimeters or something like that. I mean, 11 centimeters is almost 1 foot. So you can imagine that length. And it was a cyst that had been there and growing, obviously. And it had now ruptured. Sorry, it had now become gangrenous because it had twisted and
Twist.
twisted and twisted around one of the ovaries, and it was just crazy. And I was thinking to myself, how was all this going on in my body, and I didn't have any idea. So I ended up in the hospital. First and foremost, I was out for like 5 days because I was admitted for like 5 days before I was discharged. It was the first week of school. I wasn't there to help my kids settle in, get their uniforms, get their books, nothing. I mean, I was like, okay. So for me, it was very, um,
And
I,
they
I don't
still
know.
went to school, didn't they?
They went to school every day.
They still
They
ate,
went to
didn't
school
they?
every day. I'm like, oh my God, life goes on.
Yeah,
If it had been
but
something so serious that had taken me to the other side, that's it. Life went on.
and they leave.
After that, I I had to be mobile for almost 6 weeks. I was placed on that 40 because the surgery site had to heal and all that, and there was still the pain. And I was just like, oh my God. this is what happens to people. They're fine. I was literally fine in the morning, and by the next morning I wasn't. I mean, it changed my orientation a lot because I now realized that number one, things are going on in your body that you have no idea about. Because I'm like, how is this massive
But if
thing
you listened
coming
to
out
your
from
body,
your body? Yes,
if you
in
listened,
retrospect, I had been having very heavy bleeding. I had been having
some
lots
shouting
of
here
pain,
and
but
there, yeah,
after a while it goes away, like nothing,
yeah,
and I just ignored everything. So I'm like, things are going, that was the first shock, that things are going on. And
yeah.
secondly, the world can go on without you, really
Oh,
it
it
can.
would. The world will go on without you.
And it changed my orientation. I just said, you know what, number one, slow down and um, choose to live so that you can be alive for those that care about you. So it was a life changing, like mind altering, or perspective defining moment for me. Really, really, I can't forget that period because it really changed my perspective about a lot of things. I've always been someone who feels like I'm in control. I can, I can take care. Nothing can put me down. But I
Yeah.
realized things can put you down, and they will.
And they will.
Because
They will.
yeah,
Yes.
and you won't be able to do anything about it.
Yep. That's
So
correct.
thank you so much for that very educative talk. Before we go off, I'd like us to talk about a few, challenges that come up. You said of recent there's been a lot about and there's a lot that we have to talk about. I know that each of these things I'm going to mention is a whole spectrum, and we can do a whole episode on each of them.
Each
But I
one.
just want
Yeah.
to touch on, certain health conditions that that have been coming up a lot more recently and people are having to deal with. So just to hear your perspective. So I'd like to hear about things like PCOS,
Hmm.
hormonal imbalance, things like fibroids,
Hmm.
things like ovarian cysts. I had a young mentee who had to have a surgery recently. She's not married. She's never had sex in her life, nothing. And she had to have a surgery to take out an ovarian cyst of some sort, that had become quite, and of course, it even ended a relationship for her
Hmm.
because the guy she was dating feels like that's going to affect her fertility and things
Hmm.
like that. So I'll just really like us to talk about things like that, and then maybe touch on things like cervical cancer and the kind of the HPV vaccine, because now we're seeing a lot of people saying, oh, you know what, I don't want vaccines for my kids, and things like that. If you could just talk a bit about those. I mentioned quite a few. So I spoke about
Yes.
PCOS, hormonal imbalance,
I,
fibroids, ovarian cysts.
yeah.
Um,
Um. Um. It's a lot of information out there with regards to all of these various conditions that occur and are unique to women. But the reason why I spoke more, because when you said to me that we should speak about something, and you gave these topics, I decided not to, not because it's impossible to do that. It's simply because if we get it right in terms of, again, it's our bodies, right? And a disease situation usually has a root cause, right?
mm,
Most of it is steeped in, um, say, with women, especially with diseases that are unique to women, they're usually around hormonal imbalances, right? And hormones are secretions in your body. They have to do with, the chemistry of your body. They have to do with all these little factors, all of which can still be tied back to lifestyle, to, I'm not negating the effect of genetic predisposition. I've been saying that all through, because our genetics are our genetics, and sometimes this causes us to be more susceptible to various conditions. So you cannot rule out genetics. But even with genetics, it's almost a case of nature and nurture, right? Even though the nature is there, nurture plays a huge role. So I might have a predisposition to being a fast runner, but if I don't train, I will never go to the Olympics. You see what I mean? So it's the
Yeah.
same way with a lot of these diseases. Even though you have a predisposition to them, say diabetes, you have a predisposition to diabetes, also hypertension. If you keep your weight right, if you are mindful of what you eat, if you are mindful of, your lifestyle, the probability that these things will ever come to surface is very, very low. So it's the
Mm.
same thing with a lot of these diseases. It still boils down to lifestyle. Are you
Lifestyle.
active?
That's it.
Yes. Are you active? Are you keeping your weight right? Are you conscious of your movement? Are you conscious of your rest? You'll be so, in fact, in medicine now there's a huge campaign regarding sleep hygiene. How
Mm.
much are you sleeping? Because again, you need that routine maintenance as a human being. You need routine maintenance. And that routine maintenance occurs during sleep. Your body is repairing itself when you're at sleep, but it can only repair itself with materials that it has. So if you don't feed it the right materials, it cannot fix itself.
Mm.
So there's so many things, intricacies, and that's why I don't want to pick any one of them, because at the end of the day, they all boil down to the same thing: your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So you have PCOS. Are you eating right? Have you kept your weight right? Are you moving in the right amount of, so these things bring down the symptoms. You understand? They prevent the diseases from coming to fore. That's literally what they do. So lifestyle is when I was in med school, I remember that if a patient, if they gave you a case scenario and said to you, okay, this patient presented with this, what's your line of treatment? In the med school I went to, if you did not start your line of treatment with lifestyle changes, you failed the exam, even if you got the medication right. You failed it. Yes,
Mm.
you would have failed it. So you had to adhere to lifestyle. Lifestyle matters a lot because literally it's how you use your body. How if I keep my house dirty, I cannot expect to have, you know, a sanitary
Not to
house.
have pests like
Exactly.
rats and
Pests will,
cockroaches and
exactly. And those
yeah.
pests might become pets. I said that because I mistakenly said pets. Especially, I read something on social media recently where somebody had named the two rats in his house. So
Because they become like family members,
because
isn't
they
it?
become family, they were a constant feature. So it's the same thing with our bodies. If you don't do your housekeeping
Mm.
right, you cannot expect not to have pests. And when you have those pests, they become pets because you then have to nurture them. You then have to take medication
Mm.
to handle them.
Mm.
So if you're not on a constant basis, intentional about what you eat, I keep saying it. If you remember the saying that your body is a temple, I think then you will treat your body right because you have to make earthly comparisons and say to yourself, how do I treat the church? Even if you're the most untidy goat on earth, when you get to church, yes, when you get to church, there's a comportment. There's a
You don't
comportment
just
you have.
trash, throw it
You don't just throw
inside,
trash
and
around. You don't chew
you
while the
become
sermon
very
is going on.
sanctimonious. You don't, yeah.
Exactly. So it's the same way. If your body is a temple, why are you filling it with junk? When you go to church, you study the word. You study the word. When you go to the mosque, you listen. You pay attention. So also, why are you not reading articles about your body? Why are you not educating yourself about your body? Why are you not saying, okay, this thing is is this thing hereditary? Is this something I can pass on? Is this something that I was given by way of genetics? And if it is, how do I fight it? How then do I handle it? What are, because there is no single disease on the surface of the earth, at least that I know of, and I think I've studied quite decently. There is no disease I know of that cannot be eased by lifestyle changes. It's either you don't eat
I,
one thing, or you don't do one
oh,
thing, or you move like this, or you move like that. Something. Lifestyle is always, but there are a lot of diseases that don't have medication.
yeah.
There are a lot.
Mm,
But I don't know of any that lifestyle doesn't matter. Even if it was something that you were born with.
mm.
I don't know of any. There is something you can do in terms
Your
of your
lifestyle
lifestyle
too.
that would ease the situation.
Wow.
So
That's very
before these
profound.
things come up, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? What decisions are you making on a day-to-day basis? So as somebody with POS, are you educated? The PCOS, are you educated about the situation? As somebody with fibroids, are you educated about the situation? Do you know what recent developments have happened? Or are you just listening to somebody on the side of the road, some pepper soup joint discussion, like I like to call them, and then you just onboard everything that you are told? Or some influencer posts something on TikTok and then you're happy to. No. When you go to your doctor, you sit with your doctor, you ask congent questions. Ask your doctor questions. For the
And you can
most
only
part,
ask the right questions if you are
yes, if you
informed
are
and
educated.
interested.
I give you an
Yeah.
example. When I remember when I used to meet Oyibo patients, you had to know what you were doing as a doctor. And those were in my younger days as a doctor. You had to be educated because when they come to the clinic, those people know what they're talking about. If it might be wrong, oh, it might be rubbish, oh, it might be what they learned from the internet, oh, but they are coming to have a discussion with you. Then I moved to Nigeria, and then patients are, oh, do you take it? One yellow one like this, one small yellow one. Okay, you've been
They don't
taking this
even know what they're
you've been taking
taking.
this thing for 10 years and you don't know
And
what
you
the
don't
name
even
is.
know what it is.
How can you
Wow.
tell me that?
Something you are ingesting.
Something you are
You don't even
you
know
know,
what
I
it
remember
is.
when I was in clinic, if I have any patients that have gone through my clinic before and are watching me, you would know. If you met Dr. Ejiri in clinic and I prescribed the medication for you and you took and you say, "Oh, thank you, doctor," and you walk, I lie, I will call you back. I'll tell you, I gave you a medication sheet. You didn't even ask me what is on it. You didn't even ask me what each medication is for. You just took it and you have. So what if I don't even know what I'm saying? That's too much trust about something that has to do with your body. So while I'm not saying distrust your doctor, they are knowledgeable for it, and that's why they're there.
But
But
doctors sometimes make mistakes.
and they might have even heard you wrong. It's
I've
possible
been
that
mistaken. I've had I remember having a
possible that
particular
whatever
case of
discussion you had, the doctor had the wrong perspective. And you guys did not come to a point where there was proper communication and you understood each other. So I might have taken home the wrong message from what you were telling me. And I've got, or what if you yourself, you even skipped some details in telling me. And then I now went and prescribed the same drug or something in the same drug class as what you're using. Now it's going to become an overkill for you. It's going to become an overkill for your situation and can drive you into further disease. So you need to ask me. You can't just take a prescription sheet and walk off. You need to ask me, what is this medication for? Oh, doc, yes, thank you. So what are we going to do next? What's the next step? Can you explain to me what the next step is? Then I said to you, oh, you go for an MRI scan. Oh, really? What would the MRI scan, what will it show me in this? Or you ask, what diagnosis, what is your working diagnosis? What do you think the issue can be?
yeah.
Educate yourself. It could, oh, doctor, then the doctor says, come back to me in 4 weeks. Okay, doctor, in those 4 weeks, while I'm at home, what do you think I should be looking out for? What should I be looking out for? Because it might just be that the doctor will tell you that if you should be looking out for if you're not sleeping well, but you are not noticing that there is an issue with yourself, but now your attention has been called to it, so you will notice.
Mm.
So for me, that's why I don't,
Life.
yes, I don't typically in forums like this where I'm limited with, except if it is say World AIDS Day where I'm talking about AIDS, or maybe World Hypertension Day. Yes, when I'm talking to a broad circle, I don't like to narrow things down, because then we become hyper fixated and you find out that we start asking questions about just that one thing. So I like to
Yeah.
always say lifestyle is extremely important. Get educated from the right sources, get educated, ask questions when you go to see your doctor or your health practitioner, ask, and then on board what they've said. Please don't adjust your medication yourself and say because I said you should ask, you should go and this thing. That really is a pet peeve. When patients adjust their medication by the doctor, I felt like I've been taking this one since I just have the dose. That's not what please, that's not what I'm saying, because you are not your doctor. So what I'm saying is ask the right questions. If you feel like your medication, doc, this new medication that you gave me, it feels as if on this one I'm feeling a little bit somehow. Is that normal? Then your doctor might say, okay, let's adjust the dose a little bit, or let's titrate gradually. Let's, so there's a working relationship. It's your body after all. There's a working relationship between you and your doctor. Please don't try this
Yeah.
in the general hospital. Oh.
So
The
I
doctors,
remember a case.
they don't have time. They have 100 patients. No, I'm joking. But have a communication with your doctor. And with
I
your
remember a
health.
case where, and I don't know if you remember this because you were one of the people that helped me out of it. I spoke to a consultant. I actually had my consultant, and I spoke to her.
I
She
remember that
prescribed a
situation.
certain drug, but there were two drugs with very similar names, and she
Yes,
prescribed one. And
I
in the
remember
course of
this.
looking for it, I was told that I think our mom is a pharmacist. So I asked her, Mom, can you get this drug for me? And she's like, why do you need that? Is this not what you said is wrong with you? I think that's going to make the symptoms worse.
Yeah, then
And I
I
said, well,
called you for a
that's what my
feedback.
doctor said. And
I
then you
called you for a
told me,
feedback, and I'm like, what? They said, well, mom
yeah.
said that as well. I remember. And the doctor had
And
made
then
an
at the
error.
end of the day, exactly, I had to
Yeah.
call the doctor and say, well, my mom and my sister think that this. She was like, oh, yeah. This is so. I think it's very important that you have
And it
that
was a mistake,
constant
a human mistake that
yeah,
anybody could have made,
because the
because the
two
medication
drugs
had
have
similar names.
very similar names, very
Yeah.
similar. And I think she mistakenly wrote one instead of
Wrote
the
one
other.
instead of the other.
But one would have made the symptoms
Even
worse.
worse. Much
Wow.
worse. Yeah. I
So
remember that
I think that
situation.
also underscores the importance of educating yourself and getting second opinions sometimes
From the
as
right
well.
sources.
From the right sources, not your doctor
Not
gave
the
you
neighbor
something and
down the
then
street.
the Yalago tells you to do something else, and then you are trusting the Yalago. I'm like, okay, you know, you know. So that's really interesting. It's been a very interesting time. Thank you so much for
Thank you
showing up.
too.
I know you have
Thank
a
you
very
too.
busy schedule, so thank you for showing up for us. And I think I can let you go now. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Enjoy the
Bye.
rest of the session.
And you
Bye.
too. Bye. So there we have it, people. What did you learn in today's video? Was there something that was useful for you? Tell me in the comment section. And if you'd like us to have more of these help discussions or particular issues, also tell me in the comments. And remember, your lifestyle matters. Your lifestyle matters. So take care of your lifestyle, and the big stuff will largely take care of itself. Know your body and listen to your body. Till I come your way again next time. Ciao.